experience is that a number of the men I have dealt with in politics demonstrate precisely those characteristics which they attribute to women: vanity and an inability to make tough decisions. There are also certain kinds of men who simply cannot abide working for a woman. They are quite prepared to make every allowance for the weaker sex, but if a woman asks no special privileges and expects to be judged solely by what she is and does, this is found gravely and unforgivably disorientating. Of course, in the eyes of the wet Tory establishment, I was not only a woman, but that woman.
So then you're offered the part of Mrs. Thatcher. This is in the great series, The Crown, which must have taken a lot of thinking about.
Not really, because, I mean, you don't get offered those things that often. I mean, extraordinary series, for one. An extraordinary woman, an extraordinary opportunity to do something incredibly difficult. You know, as one does as an actor, I do, scanning whether that makes sense to me in terms of, do I think that, I could do it? Does she live somewhere inside me? And feeling quite strongly that I got her. It again felt like one of those things that one couldn't say no to, regardless of people's feelings about her. I was terrified.
Why were you terrified?
Well, it's the same thing with doing theatre. It's like I say yes before if I know something's right, I say yes before I think about it too much, because then I'll start to overthink it and I'll probably say no. So it always happens where at some point along the way I go, what was I thinking? What makes me think that I can do? Am I mad? And, it was kind of similar with this.
I recognize that for your family, the transition of this nation from empire to comparative supplicancy on the world stage must have come as a greater shock than to the rest of us. But I would argue that the Commonwealth is not the way to fill that gap. There are ways of Britain being great again, and that is through a revitalized economy, not through association with unreliable tribal leaders in eccentric costumes.
But isn't that all I am, Prime Minister? A tribal leader in eccentric costumes?
Certainly not.
Was the Voice where you started?
Well, The Voice is where I started simultaneous to, reading books about her childhood and listening to her audio tape and reading Charles Moore and et cetera, et cetera. But yes, it's probably, but yes, because we were still doing fittings for potential wardrobe. I couldn't go there yet. We hadn't got a wig yet. We couldn't do it, add all the other aspects of what makes Margaret Thatcher Margaret Thatcher. But yes, it started on The Voice very early, but didn't reveal The Voice until quite late, because, even though I was working with somebody, I don't know, I think partly fear, partly, even when we started to do the rehearsals or read-throughs and stuff like that, she would kind of show up here and there, and, people would pat her on the back, and but when it actually came time to getting closer and closer to the doing it, it really took a kick up the rear to, I think Peter said, where is she? When is she coming out? And he was absolutely right, because I just wasn't quite, I didn't feel like, I didn't feel like the environment was quite, not safe enough, but whatever I'd made up in my mind, it just wasn't, I wasn't ready. So a lot of overthinking, a lot of, not necessarily anxiety, but just, really not wanting to get it wrong.
You have a brand new cabinet.
I have.
Mostly older ministers that were culled.
Yes, although it wasn't just their age that decided it.
Rather,
Their background, mostly, and lack of grit as a consequence of their privilege and entitlement.
always a mistake to assume just because people are privileged, they lack grit. And a dangerous game, I think, to make enemies left, right, and center.
Not if one is comfortable with having enemies.
Are you?
Oh, yes. Inspired by the words of the Chartist poet Charles Mackay. You have no enemies, you say. Alas, my friend, the boast is poor. He who is mingled in the fray of duty that the brave endure must have made foes. If you have none, small is the work that you have done. You've hit no traitor on the hip. You've dashed no cup from perjured lip. You've never turned the wrong to right. You've been a coward in the fight.
They're excruciatingly powerful, and it seems to me, real scenes. She comes out well from those scenes. You think, she's having a fight and she's not doing badly here. It was a complicated feeling for myself, and I think it will be for a lot of people watching it.
No, I'm
but
sure.
There it was, and you thought that was probably what was happening. And this is the way she stood up to it. So did you feel you were taking on a very different sort of outside expectation?
Well, I mean, one thing that I realized after doing all the research that I had done was, of course, that when you are playing a prime minister for the crown specifically, it, by its nature, has to be through the prism of the crown. And so the experiences that Thatcher has, or the experience of politics in Britain at that particular time, are seen through the Queen's eyes. And so therefore they can only be, snippets of her in power. And we do get to see some of the personal elements of who Thatcher is in a way that we may not have ever considered before. Yeah. That's fascinating stuff.
Absolutely.
Oh, Lord, you're not going to start work now.
Oh, what choice do I have after wasting a whole evening like that?
Oh, come on. Bit of harmless fun.
To make matters worse, the Queen has invited me to join her stalking tomorrow morning. Yes, you laugh, but it means I have to get ahead of the work now.
All right, then why don't I go and sleep in the other room?
Don't you dare. We don't want to catch any upper-class habits. Those that sleep apart grow apart.
It's just for one night.
Yes, and that's precisely how bad habits start. You can stay here. And, well, there's a book on the bedside table.
Very well, dear. Whatever you say.
I love how she physically does it. I think you're so fixated with Gillian. Of course, you go right in on the eyes, of course, right, because her eyes are so arresting and so vivid. But it's the way in which she uses her body. When you watch Thatcher walk, she's got that little brisk walk going, and then there are moments of arresting femininity, and then the way she is at the end, she's a broken old woman. And it's the completeness of her physical immersion that is also so is so impressive, I think. The fact that she's done it as well as she has done it is in a sense no surprise to me, but that doesn't make me any less proud of what she's done.
I have other loves. My husband, my children. But this job is my only true passion. And to have it taken from me, stolen from me so cruelly. What hurts the most is that we had come so far. And now to have the opportunity to finish the job snatched away at the very last.
Do you feel that you've filled in a jigsaw of things you wanted to do consciously and unconsciously? That it started with, I wanted to do it, whatever it was, and then I wanted to do that, and then I did that, and I learned it. And then you feel that there are gaps in the jigsaw I would like to have done, I wish I'd done more of, or this.
Well, I think the years that I was getting to do Streetcar, the same year that I was getting to film The Fall, I literally thought, if I die now, I'll be happy. I'll feel okay. I feel like I'm doing That said, I do feel that there's a whole area. I've been focused so much on telly, and I continue to be. I'm passionate about documentaries. I'm passionate about film, foreign film, obscure film, and I think film. TV does too, but it's something different. But I think film can actually transform people. It's the experience of sitting down in a movie theater. It's the relationship between the audience and the work. And I feel like film can change people's lives. And
well, I think television can too. I'm glad they're both there. Yes, and you're going across them. Well, that was very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.